Hey, y'all, welcome to Musical Miles Podcast, where live music and great stories take center stage. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at TETON Guitars. Whether you're picking tunes around a campfire or taking the stage at your favorite honky-tonk, TETON Guitars delivers rich, soulful sound built for the journey. Learn more at tetonguitars.com. Now let's dive into some music and memories. You ready?
Yep.
Hey, music lovers, welcome to Musical Miles Podcast. I'm your host, Byron Duffin, and we are here in Las Vegas, Nevada with Mr. Chancey Williams.
That's right. How you doing?
I'm great.
Thanks for having me on today.
Well, thanks for coming. I know, like we talked, you've been running around like a chicken with your head cut off.
Yeah, it's a busy week for us, but we love it. You know, see a lot of friends, a lot of fans out here, so we try to take use of the whole week.
Yeah. Well, it's busy, and this is the culmination in the Western world for the music people who don't understand this. You can't have the NFR without music.
Right.
You can't have a rodeo without music.
Right. They go hand in hand, and it's all entertainment. We were talking about that today on a different podcast.
Yeah.
You know, rodeo athletes are entertainers. We're entertainers. The announcers are we're in the entertainment business.
Absolutely,
so it's
absolutely.
a lot of fun.
And to be able to tie this together for us, because our podcast is really about live music, and so that's kind of what we featured. We've been from Key West to California from Canada to Mexico.
Cool.
We love live music. We've always sought out live music. My wife and I are big live music lovers, and so when I retired in July, I said, "What in the hell are we going to do?"
Right.
So let's do a podcast. My daughter Callie, she said, "Dad, you and Mom love to travel." She was kind of had an idea for a big broad podcast, and I'm like, "Nah, let's kind of focus in on the live music scene." But it all live music starts it, but then it ties back to music in general, right?
For sure. Yep.
And we're very eclectic. We have very eclectic taste in music, but we really, really love country music, and we love the Texas red dirt stuff. It's kind of been the deal, but traditional country music and growing up on that stuff,
Right.
Chris LeDoux and we all know that,
Yeah.
right? So
the greats. Yep.
yeah. So well, let's talk about Chancey Williams and your background, because you come from Moorcroft, Wyoming.
Yep.
Born and raised there, a
Yep.
ranching family.
Yep.
Big in it's my understanding, the sheep and the cattle.
Yeah, we run sheep and cows both, but I guess our main deal growing up, and still kind of is a sheep deal. Dad.
Right.
A lot of people don't like sheep, but I mean, I tell you what, they've been good for us. And if you got to really know how to work sheep and run them right, and that's
Right.
our dad Dennis is he's a genius when it comes to running sheep. And he just
Well, I've always been a little, and we're always a little tender about this, a little tender topic, being a sheep guy, right? But
Yeah.
I grew up on a sheep farm.
yeah.
And, I'm an Idaho farm boy that always wanted to be a cowboy. And, when you're running sheep, that ain't much of a cowboy trade.
Right.
But that being said, my great grandfather actually ran 2 bands of sheep.
Yeah.
Up in that Du Bois country, in the Butch and Kevin Small territory.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I know Butch and Kevin.
Yeah.
You know them old bronc
Yeah.
riders. Yeah.
You always give those big cattle ranchers heck. They think it's cool to run cows, but I was like, the West was settled with sheep.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
this land that you run those cows on,
Yeah.
sheep were here first.
Yeah.
They don't like it very good.
No, but there's a lot of truth to that.
That is.
So
Sheep settled the West,
Yeah. Well, cool. So you guys, Moorcroft is in eastern Wyoming,
Yep,
kind of northeast Wyoming.
corner, yep, Crook County.
And you are close to Devil's Tower, right? Don't
Yep.
you guys ranch out
Yeah,
in that
our ranch
country
is
too?
fairly close to the way the crow flies, probably 10 miles.
Okay.
10, 20 miles from the tower. But it's a beautiful part of Wyoming.
Oh, yeah.
It's the second least populated county in the least populated state. So, I mean, people talk about not having a stoplight in their town. Like, we don't have a stoplight in our county.
Right,
But
right.
it's a really pretty part of Wyoming. It's where the tail end of the Black Hills
Yes.
comes into Wyoming. It's super pretty. And, there's lots of great places in Wyoming. Everybody loves Jackson because of the Tetons and stuff. But to me, growing up, northeast corner up there is the best in my opinion, but we don't like to tell too many people we don't want them moving out there.
No. Well, and we, and that's what's happened to Teton County in that part of the Wyoming.
It sure has.
And that's 90 miles from my backyard. So
Right.
that's how close I am to
Yeah, and it just, Jackson's beautiful and it's part of Wyoming, but it's too bad it doesn't really feel like Wyoming anymore. But if you can get by that,
Yeah.
we were up there this summer for a date. We played right at the base of the Tetons, and it was I forgot how cool Jackson is.
Yeah.
But the problem just doesn't feel like that. But if you can just get by that fact that like it's never going to be representation of how people in Wyoming really are, and it's just a beautiful place.
Or the way it used to be.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a very dear friend of mine lives in Driggs on the other side of the Tetons.
Oh, yeah.
And he grew up there, moved away 30 years ago, went to California and worked in the movie business and was a stuntman, and he's back now. He's retired, but he's like, it's not like it used to be,
Well, that's the problem. And you know what? I don't blame people. With shows like Yellowstone and stuff coming out, it's been so great for the Western world, and shedding a light on cowboys and ranching has been special. But in lieu of that, people move out. The whole plot of that show is they don't want people moving out, and it's causing people to move out. And but I don't blame them.
Yeah.
If you live in the city somewhere and you come out, I don't blame people for wanting to live how we live.
The Western way of life is pretty cool.
It is.
And once again, like I said, I'm an Idaho farm boy. I wasn't raised on a ranch.
Right.
I mean, we ran cattle and we had sheep and we farmed, but I always wanted to be a cowboy. And so, at 14 years old, I picked up a rope, and my dad was fortunate. I was fortunate enough that he was successful enough as a good farmer to be able to afford to buy us good horses and get us help. So we were able to do that. And I was a pretty decent hand. I've won my fair share of buckles and saddles and a little bit of cash.
It's the best way of growing up. Dad had us riding when we were 4, and we were roping the dummy, and we were little.
Yep.
We'd fight with each other, and our punishment would be go rope the dummy for an hour. So
right. Don't come in the house till you've roped him 100 times.
So what a great life to be blessed to live that way. And
you bet.
It's second to none.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so let's talk about that. You grew up on the ranch and you started rodeoing.
Yeah.
And you were a bareback rider, right?
Saddle bronc.
Saddle bronc rider.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Dad rode barebacks and saddle broncs both, but me and my brothers ended up just riding broncs. And we team roped and calf roped all through high school too. But Pee Wee rodeos, we did it all, barrels and poles, and all the rope and stuff. And then we got old enough to ride bucking horses and wanted to ride saddle broncs because Dad did.
Yeah.
And it was, some of the best years of my life. It was fun. I miss it.
And you went to the high school finals in the bronc riding?
Yep, went to high school finals my senior year and missed it my junior year by like a point. They had it in Gillette, which was 30 miles away.
Right.
And the next year I made it was in Springfield, Illinois.
Oh, my goodness.
Dang it. I wish I'd have made it in Gillette.
Yeah.
But, and then went on to college, got a rodeo scholarship to Casper College.
Okay.
And rodeoed there 3 years. Loved it. Made the college finals my third year there.
Okay.
And then figured I better finish my degree. So I went to the University of Wyoming and rodeoed my fourth year in Laramie.
Okay.
And made the college finals that year. And then, was kind of playing music the whole time too, but not serious.
So was your what's your degree in?
Well, I got 2 associate's degrees out of Casper College. Then I got a bachelor's degree at University of Wyoming in political science.
That's right.
And then I got a master's in public administration there.
Public administration. I read that. So, my youngest has a degree in political science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really handy.
Did you do? Yeah, I don't know. Did you do an internship in D.C.?
No. So I was fortunate. My department head knew I was playing music and knew I kind of wanted to pursue music. And
sure.
She was really nice. She said, because I was supposed to go to D.C.
Right.
And
I kind of thought that was everybody's deal, right?
Well, and you were kind of supposed to, half of my class went to law school and I didn't. So I just finished that. And she knew I wanted to go to Nashville. And she said, if you can find any internship in Nashville, I'll sign off on it. It doesn't really have to be relatable to public administration. She said, so I was friends, with the LeDoux.
Yeah.
And so I talked to Will, Chris's boy, my friend. I said, does TK do internships? So TK managed Chris. TK also managed Toby.
Okay.
And Sawyer Brown. So I was like, does TK do internships? And he said, yeah. So I called Mark and flew down and interviewed for an internship, and they hired me. And
fun.
Then I interned at Toby's label and TK's management. So that's kind of what brought me to Nashville was my degree.
Okay. Well, I got to meet Will actually not too long ago.
I just seen him about an hour ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
Because I got to interview Ned.
Yeah.
When he was in Pocatello,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fun because he said that was the first place he ever played in his dad's band. His first full gig was in Pocatello, Idaho.
Was it?
Yeah. When he played for Western Underground when he first started. For Chris.
Man, Ned a lot of people don't, if they're new Ned fans, don't know how good of a drummer he is.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the greatest drummers I've ever seen. Like, he's really fun to watch. He's like really animated.
Well,
And
they need to listen to the podcast because it's a great story. Because
Yeah.
most people don't know, and I didn't know this
Yeah.
until I interviewed him.
how he got the job.
Well, one, he never sang.
No.
That was not his deal.
No.
He never sang until after Chris died.
Yeah, he didn't sing even when Western Underground was doing that reunion tour. It's kind of when he started. You know, Dustin Evans was singing for Western Underground.
Right.
And then Ned, you know, at those dates, they would go after shows and play guitar and
Right.
sing a little bit. And I think Mark was like, why don't you get up and do a couple on a break, or, you know, on the,
Yeah, and he's like, sing. I don't sing.
and then I remember the first time I seen Ned play, because I've known him forever
Right.
as a friends.
Sure.
They were playing in Gillette one night, and Ned came out from behind the drums and sang a couple, and it was gave me chills. I was like, "Holy
Oh,
shit."
yeah.
I was
It's like Chris reincarnated,
I know,
right?
and I think that's what people love, and it's been great. And I seen Ned a couple days ago. I was like, and you got to jump back behind the drums once in a while. I was like, he was such a great drummer.
Right. Well, he talked about when he was a kid, like little, like 4 or 5.
Right.
When his dad's they were playing in the bus barn.
Yeah.
In KC, and he said he just was intrigued by his dad's drummer had that kit was yellow, bright yellow, and it was just, and he said, yeah, come here. And he got it all set up, and he said I'm just making noise, just banging, raising
Yeah.
hell, and he goes, let me show you a couple of things, and he showed him some
Yeah.
things. And it was just the start of a great career. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's neat.
cool. That's cool. Well, let's talk a little bit more about Chancey. So you were playing. When did you pick up the guitar?
Well, I started playing guitar in high school a little bit, you know, just kind of for fun. I had some other high school rodeo buddies that played, so we'd sit around behind the buck and shoots and strum at some high school rodeos. And so I was just kind of playing there. And then in high school, me and a couple of buddies thought we'd start a band. We played for a talent show.
Okay.
And I was playing drums in high school band, and then my band teacher, we didn't have a tuba player. He's like, hey, would you learn the bass guitar and just play the tuba part on the bass guitar? I was like, sure. So I learned how to play bass.
Okay.
And then while I was playing bass, I was kind of playing acoustic too. But the first 8 years I had a band, I played bass and sang.
Okay.
So that's what kind of led me into music. And then, you know, we just figured later on we should probably hire a bass player and I could play acoustic.
Right.
Just kind of fill up more space. So
Sure.
that's what made the transition. But I miss playing bass. It was fun.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. My youngest kid, he when he got to college, he said, hey, I'd like to learn how to play the bass. Would you buy me a bass? And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, because I'd bought him a guitar when he was younger.
Right.
And he piddled around with it a little bit, but I can understand because I started at 15 and then
Yeah.
just picked it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. Never took it serious, but he started playing the bass and he did a pretty damn good job.
It's fun, you
And-
know, but
and
I was probably
yeah.
never as good as I should have been. Like, my bass player now is amazing. So, like, I'm glad I'm not playing bass anymore.
Well, it was funny because I hired during COVID when nobody was touring. I hired Mickey and Gary Braun to come and do a private show for us.
Oh, nice.
In Firth, Idaho, and I introduced Gage to him, and I said, well, he's a wannabe bass player, and Gary goes, keep it up, buddy. He says, because bass players are hard to find.
They are
He
hard
said,
to find.
That's an easy job to fill. So,
well, because no kid grows up and will be like, I want to be a bass
beep,
player.
beep, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
usually kids either want to play drums or guitar because it's cool.
Right.
So it's
Well,
hard to find
harder
those bass players that are really good that just love playing bass that much. And
Yeah,
we
and-
found one. We got Jay.
and hard to find girls if you're a bass player.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's hard to impress the girls. I'm a bass player.
Yeah. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's kind of boring.
Yeah, so cool. So you started out, got the ball rolling, but you were still riding bucking horses. So
Yeah, so we were, you know, I was college rodeoing and we were playing dates. We were playing college rodeos same weekend. I was playing and riding. And then I got to picking up too. So I was picking up broncs. I was doing a few rodeos for Surveys and Franzens. And so I was picking up some of the rodeos I'd pick up and then I'd ride in too. So I'd switch my shafts out, go ride, switch my
Right.
shafts, go back to picking up. And was juggling that.
wearing all the hats.
Yeah, I was riding broncs, picking up, trying to play, and I was kind of, you know, getting where I was just kind of doing mediocre at all three, it felt like.
Right.
I mean, I really liked picking up. I felt like I was doing a good job. I wasn't focusing on riding broncs like I should have because I was too distracted doing other things. music, we were just kind of taking any date that was whatever. And my dad said, just kind of maybe you are doing too much. He said,
Right.
you should just pick one that you want to do and do it really good. So I chose music.
Okay.
Just because I figured I could, I can pick up later in life. You can pick up when you're older. Riding broncs, I knew, there's a time limit on that too.
Sure. Yeah.
But I said, music, you can sing, I can sing forever.
Well, it was interesting. I interviewed Muzzy Braun, and I asked Muzzy, I said, what's the plan? And I think Muzzy's in his, it's probably early 70s. I said, you thinking about retiring anytime soon? He said, you can't quit.
Right.
He said, if you quit, your hands don't work, your voice goes weird. So you just do it. You just keep doing it. It's something you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Exactly. And it's something, it don't really matter what level you do it on. You can do it at a big level. You can do it just around the campfire. It's just, music's one of those things you can just have with yourself forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think music, and I talked about this with Corb earlier, music really meets us where we are. I heard Jelly Roll say that. He said music literally meets us where you are.
Yeah.
So it depends on what mood you're in. You might sing a song, and it really might touch me, and it may not even affect the guy sitting next to me. But the the lyrics and the tune itself, the melody really may speak to us, and you just don't know. You don't know how that impacts people.
That's what's special about music, There's a song for everybody out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like there's a lid for every pot, right?
That's right.
So there's a song for everybody.
Yep.
And there are some, that the people are like, man, that music, that this artist really, really resonates with me. And I'm like, they're good, but it didn't touch me in any special way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I have a very eclectic taste in music, and I'm sure you do. Who were your influences besides Chris? Obviously, Chris was a huge impact on your life.
Yeah, just because, Chris, because he was from Wyoming.
Right.
And him and Dad were friends. So, he was just like Dad's friend that, played music. But, obviously, like George Strait, I always thought was cool because he's the king of country music, and he's a cowboy.
I mean,
so I related to that. But I mean, I grew up with the '80s and '90s sound, like Dan Seals, Dwight Yoakam, Toby Keith. Were just what they did. I just like those type guys. I like their sound, and like Gary Allen, that Bakersfield sound. I really like that California country stuff. The Merle Haggard,
Buck Owens.
Yeah. Buck, man, they were the greatest. But when I got a little older, was more guys like Toby.
Sure.
I always tell people, and probably because I got to work for Toby too.
Okay.
Worked for him for a year, and he treated me so well that like I love that probably more than his music, and I love his music, but he treated me like his own son, and even the last text he sent me, he called me his oldest boy.
Oh,
and,
that's so cool.
Like. I tell people all the time, there's a lot of stars in the world for sure, but there's a handful of superstars.
Right.
And Toby was a superstar.
Yeah.
So to be able to co-mingle and work with Toby was unbelievable. And I was just an intern and fly on the wall, and a driver for him. And I just stayed quiet a lot, but he noticed that, and he really liked me.
Yeah.
But he taught me a lot about how to treat people.
Yeah, I was a fan of Toby from the beginning, right?
Yep.
From the early days, his early albums, his early music.
Well, and not a lot of people got to see that side of him. They just got to kind of see his stage persona, which is a tough guy. And but Toby was one of the kindest people. Would help anybody.
Well, he had a huge. What do I want to say?
Like his nonprofit.
Yeah, his nonprofit deal. That was a big thing.
The OK Kids Corral.
Yeah,
that's that children's hospital.
Yeah. Millions and millions of dollars that he donated and
he funded
raised.
It all himself and raised. Yeah, he was just a great person. But so and that kind of was another reason I wanted to go further in music. When I went down to do my internship, I didn't know if I was going to make a career out of it. Figured I'd probably go back and keep riding broncs and probably ranch. Sure. But after being around Toby's camp and, TK and Kurt Motley, and Kurt's my agent now, is just watching how I was like, man, I think I kind of want to do this for a living.
Yeah.
And try it,
Sure.
Granted, I didn't really fit the sound of what a lot of Nashville was doing at that time. And, you try to stay authentic. So I just kept after it. There was about 10-year span there of the bro country stuff, which is what it is. A lot of people made a lot of great money off that, and but that wasn't what I was.
Sure.
And it was hard to fit in the music scene for a while because it was like a lot of this stuff was real poppy. And like I said, each their own. Some people love that stuff.
Yeah.
It just wasn't what I did. And if I'd have tried to do songs like that or sing like that, my fans would have strung me up, like
Sure.
everybody knows I'm a ranch kid from Warcroft. So
Right.
I have a sound. Here's what I do.
And the interesting thing enough about it, Chancey, is that you do have a very unique sound, but the Nashville deal is Nashville, and the Texas is Texas, and red dirt's red dirt, and you don't really fit in those molds.
We don't, and I say that in our show every night. We're a little bit of Nashville, a little bit of red dirt, but we're not really either. I was like, we're not Texas country. We're not Texas.
Yeah.
We're not Nashville. I was like, we're just Wyoming country. I guess we're our own sound. We're what, maybe a little bit of Chris LeDoux mixed with a little George Strait with a little Dwight Yoakam in there.
Yeah. And I think I think there's a lot of truth to that because as I get more involved in this music scene, and of course I'm a big music fan and I've loved live music, but once again I never got to see Toby live.
Right.
I never got to see Buck Owens live. I never got to see Merle live. I never got to see Johnny Cash live. But I love all those bands, right? But those guys all influence the current guys that I do get to see live, like Cross Canadian Ragweed and Reckless Kelly and Mickey and the Motor Cars.
Yep. And those guys were all that sound that those were like the first gen of that Texas red dirt scene. Like the Godfathers are, Robert Earl Keen and Kevin Fowler and Randy Rogers and all those guys.
Yeah.
Nicky the Motor Car. I mean, all those guys were kind of what kicked off that Texas scene, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, agreed.
And like,
well, you got to go back a little bit further, even with Willie and Jerry Jeff and those guys, because they left the Nashville scene and went to Texas and said, Ray Wiley, we're from Texas, screw you. We're going to do our thing.
Yeah.
And they did a hell of a job, and I'm a big fan of all those guys.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
I like that stuff.
Yeah.
Our sound was never really that. We didn't really know what our sound was. We just started playing.
Yeah.
Here's what it sounds like. But we weren't really trying to sound like CCR, trying to sound like Toby or George. We were just trying to sound as good as we can.
Sure.
And I don't know what sound that is. It just...
Well, but it resonates with your fans because you have a very loyal fan base.
Yeah, and but it's work, and I think it's better to be unique than Nashville's gotten to where there's a lot of carbon copies of things. Like if something works, they want to try to replicate that a whole bunch. And I don't know. I don't understand that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like why would you want something unique? But we've stuck to our guns and not really had to. We just do because that's how we sound. Like I don't know how else to sound.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And I think being authentic, like this day and age, authenticity is huge, and I think fans are starting to see through that. Like a lot of artists maybe are singing about stuff they don't really know about just to sell a record.
Sure.
Or doing it just to have a hit.
Right.
And that's fine too if that's what you want to do. But I think true fans that aren't just going to be with you today and then on to the next thing tomorrow, the next big thing.
Sure.
To acquire those fans that are going to be with you for life, they got to know you're authentic, and they can see it, and they can see if you're not too.
Well, it's interesting. I got the chance to sit down with Cowboy Troy, which is Troy.
Right.
He's very different.
Yeah.
He's but he called it hick hop, right?
Yeah.
He kind of coined that phrase, and he actually owns the trade. He trademarked that name.
Did he?
Did you know that?
That's nice.
Yeah. So, but Troy made a comment to me. He says whenever I do a new album, he said I try and keep about 40% of the old stuff connected with the new stuff because you don't want to lose your whole audience, right?
For sure.
And even though you're because life's an evolution. We're changing. We talked earlier about me, riding my Harley through Moorcroft to Sturgis.
Right.
I don't own a Harley anymore. And there was all my biker buddies when I got rid of the Harley and went back to team roping and riding horses. They're like, "Oh, you're a cowboy now." I said, "Boys, I was a cowboy a long time before I was a biker. I loved the Harley. I had a lot of fun with it. But the roots are. But you have your roots. But you make changes. Your life's
right. And we do that when we write and record new stuff. You got to kind of push the envelope a little bit. Like, I can't put out the exact same stuff I put out in years prior because people have kind of heard that. But you do stuff that fits your brand that stays in our lane, but also pushes the envelope a little bit. Like I got some songs coming out in this next batch that are still us. They're still cowboy, but they're a little different.
Sure.
They're, just to see, you know.
Well, you got to experiment a little bit,
Yeah,
and figure out what your niche is and where.
Yeah,
what
and you
works.
don't know what hits, you know.
Yeah,
you might gain a whole new audience by a song that is a little different than what you did, but you don't want your fans to abandon you either.
Well, the world we live in today, Chancey, this thing could blow up overnight.
Yeah.
With the right song, right? With the right lyric,
you see it all the time.
Well, there's some guys coming here this weekend, right? Braxton Keith and Hudson Westbrook. I don't know if you know those guys, but you know Hudson wrote his first song last year.
Right.
He has 2.6 million followers on his Spotify.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
Yeah, it literally can happen overnight. I mean, you take Lainey, for example. She's worked a long time in music, but Lainey went from, like, selling clubs decent to literally winning Entertainer of the Year.
But what happened?
Yeah.
Yellowstone happened.
Exactly.
Yellowstone happened. And what is the avenue that's going to take us? And Yellowstone's done. We talked about that earlier about, you know, people wanting to come to the West and live the Western lifestyle, and they don't know what's involved in it. You've watched it on Yellowstone. You watched the llama rancher, you know, and that old Buck Taylor stuffs him under the cattle guard. But you know, the reality of it is that life, you know, once again, it evolves and it changes. But Yellowstone's done amazing things for the Western world and for the music industry.
Has. You know, and with the good and the bad, it's mostly good.
Right.
You know, like people want to, and you know, Nashville uses this term all the time, and Lainey does too. It's like cowboys are cool again. And I was kind of stopped those folks in Nashville, like, hey, no, we've always been cool. We've been here. You guys just found out about us.
Right.
Everyone's like, cowboys are cool again. I don't love that term because I'm like,
it's cowboys.
My dad's
always
been cool my whole life. He's a cowboy. Like my friends that are rodeo, I think have been cool forever. I think the rest of the world finally just woke up and was like, oh man, these cowboys are cool.
Yeah. Well, you know what's fun? It's always cool to be recognized as a cowboy. You know, I told you I'm an Idaho farm boy that always wanted to be a cowboy. My grandkids call me cowboy.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that's rather than be called grandpa, I'd rather be called cowboy any day, right? That's a badge of honor for me.
Well, and when the dust settles, that's what I want to be remembered at too, as a cowboy. You know, I was a singer, but I was a cowboy first.
You bet.
You know, like,
you bet.
Everything I've ever done has revolved around that way of life.
Yeah.
How I treat people, how I work. It's all because I'm a cowboy.
Sure. Well,
I just sing about that stuff.
That code of the West, you know, that we all grew up believing the cowboy. You know, ride for the brand and do the right thing, right? You know. So, well, cool. Well, we got the show going on in the
we're getting our own show.
We're getting our own show right here. Yeah, we got Steve Helms and Chad Prather is playing with him today. So anyway, I got to interview Chad yesterday. Yeah, what a funny guy. What a great guy.
Yeah.
But, you know, coming to Vegas is always such a fun thing. You know, I've been here. This is like 25 years in a row for me.
Awesome.
And so we love this because we get to come and see our friends and you know, all the people that I spent time, you know, either rodeoing with in the past and you know, you run into your old buddies and
it's such a fun week. You're right too. It's like a big reunion for everybody. So,
it really,
you know,
truly is.
You know, in the entertainment business, we don't get to see everybody all the time because like everybody's always on the road. But like this week, a lot of us are in town, so I'll see Aaron Watson, I'll see Corb, I'll see Ian. You know, like, so you get to sit down and have a beer versus like pass each other on the interstate somewhere.
Right.
And it's the same with cowboys. You know, those guys are rodeoing as hard as we're playing music, so like you barely get to see them.
Right.
We'll be at the same rodeo as some of my friends are entered.
Right.
But they skin out before we ever start.
Well, and it's interesting because you've lived both sides of the fence, if you will. Yeah.
Yep. So those guys are headed to the next one. By the time we're starting, I was like, "Hey, I heard you were here today." Like, "Yeah, we had to roll." You know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, well, and I spent a lot of years, like I say, in the rope business, and so I knew a lot of the team ropers and the steer trippers and the calf ropers. I love to go to Pendleton and watch the slack and get to hang out and get to interview some. I got to interview Clint Summers, who was my very first interview here at the NFR this year, and I've known Clint since he was a rookie in 2012. So,
that's cool.
And so it was kind of cool. I really try and stay focused on music. You know, sometimes these podcasts get out there a little bit, a little bit fractured, but you know, have you met? You probably know Bryce Long, don't you?
Oh yeah, he's produced my record.
Oh, actually, I knew you knew him.
But I got to interview him in Montana at Whitefish. Yeah, what a
Bryce
cool
is
guy.
awesome. He was here. He came out, sat with me on, let's see, Friday and Saturday. But yeah, Bryce and I have been writing together for a couple of years now, and he wanted to produce some songs on me because like he's just a great writer, and he's a cowboy.
Yes.
And so there's not a lot of cowboys in Nashville, so we teamed up, and my new single that's coming out, we wrote together.
Oh, cool.
We wrote One Bad Mother Buckaroo together, Paycheck Down. So we wrote a bunch of stuff.
Well, that's a good guy to write with because he's had some huge success.
Oh, man, he's
John Party's Heartache on the Dance Floor, Randy Hauser.
Like a Cowboy. Nothing on with the radio.
Yeah, he's written some great songs, and it was funny because we got to talk in the interview, and I don't know where how these conversations happen, but one thing led to another about roping and team roping, and I said, well, I spent 13 years in the rope business. I used to run Gator ropes. I used your ropes in college, and we hijacked the whole podcast for 10 minutes about team roping.
That's awesome.
And people that we know, mutual acquaintances, and so
and that's kind of why Bryce and I bonded. We know the same people and have the same lifestyle. He's just a real big hit songwriter, and that's what I was looking for.
And he's just as down to earth, and that's what I appreciate about you, Chancey, and about even Chad. And that's what I said yesterday. You're approachable, right?
Well, appreciate that.
A lot of guys get big and famous, and even Chad says, look, I don't think I'm famous. I might be recognizable,
right.
But the reality of it is that you got to remember where you came from.
Oh yeah.
And so.
And that's just the way, ranch kids and Wyoming people are.
Yeah.
People say all the time, like, don't let it get to your head. It's like, I've been doing it a long time. I think it'd have got there by now.
Yeah,
Like,
I was
raised this way. My folks taught me how to treat people.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change, I guess, in my opinion. The bigger you get, it just gets more hectic.
Well, the reality of it is that we're all people, right? We're all just remember to be kind and
well, that's
and
the thing,
gracious.
like Cowboy Christmas, and people ask me all the time, I was like, does that get annoying having to stop and picture and all this? I was like, not at all. Like, I signed up for this, and like
exactly
those artists that get irritated with their fans, I was like, man, you wouldn't be nobody without those fans. Like, you should stop for every person.
They're the ones paying your salary.
Yeah, and it's super easy to avoid. Just don't go out.
Yeah, if you want to be a recluse,
don't go out.
Don't go out.
Yeah, so like when I go out, I sign up for it, and I expect people to say hi, or not expect them to say hi, but if they do, I expect to talk to them.
Yeah, it's a common courtesy, and once again, you signed up for it.
Yeah,
it's
my own fault. Yeah,
it's interesting. Over the years, I've run into some of those situations where people knew who I was, and my wife's like, why didn't you introduce me to that guy? Because I don't have a clue who that was, right?
Sometimes it is hard to remember names, but I can always place them. Like, you're from Idaho, right? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking time. I know you've been beat up and down the road this week. It's been busy. And I got to see they actually had you on the was it the tailgate party?
For Teton Ridge.
Teton Ridge.
Yeah.
That was cool.
That was fun. Yeah. They're doing a lot of great things for rodeo. I think they're going to do some great things for music. So they're kind of dabbling in entertainment.
Yeah.
And, we like working with them.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, speaking of Teton, that guitar sitting next to you is a Teton guitar. That is an Idaho company. Are you familiar with that brand?
Is it? Hey, Wyatt, is these Tetons guitars? I thought that kid, what's that guy out of Laramie that makes guitars? This ain't him, but I've seen a few of these around.
Yeah, so
Teton.
they're in Idaho Falls.
Jackson or Chalice.
Who the
Teton?
No, Idaho Falls.
Idaho Falls.
Yeah, they're in Idaho Falls.
Where, the Bills boys got.
Yeah, Tyler Bills plays one. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have been very gracious. They give me guitars, and I have have the artist autograph on the back. This one's been autographed on the back, if you notice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so a bunch of the NFR contestants, some Yellowstone actors. Mo brings plenty. Buck Taylor.
Oh, that's nice.
Who I've known Buck for a lot of years. And his son Cooper has been the stunt double for Rip on Yellowstone for the last 5 years.
Yeah, they asked me to do that, but I guess I wasn't big enough. Just kidding.
Or dark enough.
He's
kind of, Cole's kind of a ginger anyway. So
that's right.
Yeah. But if we can, let's have you play us a little tune. I'm going to slide this a little closer because this mic will pick up. Yeah, play me a song. Play me something real quick, and just play me a verse and a chorus of something that you
tune it up here.
Yeah.
Hey, right, Tom, grab me that tuner out of that guitar, would you?
Hell, Cord played it. He tuned it. He said it was perfect.
No, it's not, Corb. Yeah, these are great guitars. I know a couple guys that.
Yeah, so that is a spalted maple. Look how pretty that thing is.
Yeah, look at them making Ray, Tom, and Aaron pack that guitar around all day.
Yeah, well, when you pack a guitar around, it gets knocked around and
Yeah, that
it
one
goes out
in
of
that
tune.
case is a 1947 J50. It's I
Oh,
really like that guitar.
well, I was telling Chad about I got a chance to play a J45, a 1950 J45.
Do you?
In the Elizabeth Hotel in Fort Collins, Colorado. Is a musically themed hotel. They loan them out.
Really?
I had that J45 in my room for 3 days, and all I had to do was sign a piece of paper that said I wouldn't steal it.
That's funny.
How crazy is that?
Well, what do you want to hear?
Whatever you want to play us. You got something new that nobody's heard?
Yeah, let's see here.
Cord played me a song about his mom that he
Did
wrote
he?
for his mom, which was cool. Yeah, really cool.
I'll play you this. This one's new. I haven't even recorded this one. This one's called If You Lived Here, You'd Already Be Home. I wrote it with Win Barble.
Okay.
And, it's kind of that moment when you're dating somebody and you know you don't really want to tell her you love her yet, but she has to leave every night and go to work. You say, if you lived here, you'd already be home.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
It's been great, but you know I hate this time of night. It's like another missing each other sleepless night. Got to go, grab your purse and you found your keys. Don't you know this gotta go is killing me? I know 6 o'clock comes early, and I'll be reaching for you all night long. I ain't mad, baby, don't you worry. Give this some thought while you're driving all alone. If you lived here, you'd already be at home. Gotta say, I know this place don't look like much. Say the truth, it sure could use a woman's touch. Got a couple dresser drawers to put your stuff. Have a walk-in closet that needs filling up. I know 6 o'clock comes early, and I'll be reaching for you all night long. I ain't mad, baby, don't you worry. Give this thought while you're driving all alone. If you lived here, you'd already be at home. I guess what I'm trying to say is I love you, girl, and I wish I could wake up every morning with your arms around me, darling. I know 6 o'clock comes early, and I'll be reaching for you all night long. We're all good, baby, don't you worry. Give this some thought while you're driving all alone. If you lived here, you'd already be at home. If you lived here, you'd already be at home.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
so much. That was so cool.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for playing something for us that we'd never heard. That's awesome.
We're going to track that one in February, I think. So.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you. So is Bryce still in town, or did he leave town?
He left. He had to leave Sunday.
Oh,
he was sad about it. He's like, man, we should still in Vegas.
You need to sign that somewhere. If you can find it. If you need to sign it on the side, you're good. You can sign it anywhere you want. We got
Mike room right.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. Anytime. We love following your career and love your music and look forward to what you got going on.
Well, thanks so much. Good luck with everything. We'll do it again sometime.
All right, we will. All right, next time you got that new album, you ready to release it? Let us know.
Deal.
Okay. Hey, Chancey, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Ya.
Appreciate it.
Hey, for Musical Miles Podcast, I'm your host, Byron Duffin, here with Chancey Williams in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you to Espuela Productions and Cody Oden.